Welcome to our podcast, Mind Over Chatter at Home, a regular podcast of the power of lived experiences of mental health, coming from one of Home Group's working offices. A customer-led podcast of involved customers and volunteers with Home Group staff invited to contribute. Home Group is a national company and provide affordable homes to rent and buy while working with partners to provide health and social care, housing and support. Each episode will do a deep dive into mental health, the conditions, what they are, how they affect people, and how we can all cope. All our speakers are either affected or live with mental health. None of us professionally trained. We are drawing from the lived experiences, so grab a brew, sit back, and join us for a while. For those that need it, here's your content warning for reference to suicide. Hi, I'm Indra, I'm your co-host for today's episode on mental health. We're going to talk a little bit about the stigmas and that surround mental health. As we're all part of Home Group, I'm just going to introduce ourselves. I'm joined today by Stevie. How are you today, Stevie?
Oh, hi, Indra. I'm fine, thank you.
And what brings you here today?
I just want to try and make people aware of what mental health means when you suffer with it.
It means a lot, doesn't it, to people? Well, I'm also here today, joined by Amber. How are you today, Amber?
Hi, yes. I'm great today, thank you very much. I have been an involved customer with Home Group for a couple of years.
So, Stevie, have you actually had any encounters with the stigma that surrounds mental health?
I've had quite a lot of stigma. People's perceptions, people assume because you suffer with a mental health disability that you're stupid, or you tend to get neglected. What I mean by that is you're not included in whatever's going on, and it's just that kind of thing.
It goes a bit back down to that invisible illness thing, doesn't it? So what mental health would you say you have then?
I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder about 12 years ago, and I also have, now I've got to get this right because they changed it, emotionally unstable personality disorder, that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't help for us mental health sufferers when they keep changing the names on it and moving the goalposts. It makes it very difficult for us. So Amber, have you had any sort of negative stigmas from this?
Yeah, so I actually suffer from paranoid schizophrenia, and I have done for the last 13 years. I did live in London originally, and that's where I fell ill. And I came up against a whole load of people's bad opinions about mental health problems, and I felt very isolated and very alone with it all. I have now got a really good mental health team, which I know not everyone does, and having that has really improved my quality of life.
Yeah, it does make a vast difference if you've got the support. Again, I would say it does that with the stigmas. So have you noticed that as well, Stevie?
Again, it's like you said, it's location. Because I've got the same problem where I live, and I've just been informed that the service I normally get I've been discharged from because there's been a change in how they are running the service. What they're saying now is because they're short-staffed, they're having to sort of discharge people after a certain period of time. Which sort of has come a bit of a shock to me because it's the only support I've been getting for the last 12 years, apart from obviously the support I get from Home Group. So I'm a bit sort of worried about that at the moment. Like I said, I can understand the reasons. They're being inundated with new referrals at the moment. And they just don't have the staff to cope with the influx. But then it doesn't help people in my situation when they're not signposting you to anywhere that can sort of help you.
No, it wouldn't help. another side of it as well, as we've said, we're all home group involved in that and everything. And I know home group do a lot to try and support and signpost their colleagues and that. So I'd like to bring Claire in at this point and ask how home group would do that.
Hi, so I'm Claire. I'm the head of customer engagement at Home Group, and I got involved with this group last World Mental Health Day 2021 when we set up a group with all of you and some other customers as well to look at how we could work with customers in a better way around mental health. So we do have some specialist services, and they're obviously really good and knowledgeable about mental health, but what you were saying to me is that if you ring up the customer service centre, or you have to speak to someone in an administrator or something like that, then that response might not be so good. So we've tried to look at ways of improving our response. And mental health is a big interest area for me. I've always worked in mental health services, and I've had difficulties of my own, like most people. So we've got a really good project going, and I'm sure that you'll sort of talk about some of the things that we've achieved while doing that as well.
Yeah, we will be. As you said, a lot of people are affected by mental health. I think statistically now it's 1 in 3 will actually go into some form of mental health well-being that will affect their daily life. Everybody has a degree of mental health. Where it becomes a problem or an issue is when it starts affecting your daily life. So yeah, it is really important that everybody's aware that people do need to be treated with, respect and everything else. You can't see anybody that has a mental health problem. It's not as if there's a plaster on the leg when you break your leg. It's obvious. Mental health is hidden. So we do always need to be aware of that. So Claire, you say that the group has achieved a lot since it started last year. So what have we actually achieved?
Okay, so we decided as a group that 3 is the magic number. So we picked 3 main areas to work on. So the first one was exactly what I talked about earlier, where you felt that as customers, if you rang up and spoke to somebody who were a mental health specialist, then they didn't always know what to do next. So you have co-designed and delivered training for people who are not working directly with mental health, but will then have more knowledge about what to do when they answer the phone to somebody who might be in distress or might want to talk about their mental health. So Stevie, I know you've done a lot of both designing that training but delivering that training. And there's 2 reasons for me that I wanted to ask you about that. Firstly, because obviously you've done a brilliant job, but I know that personally you've got quite a lot from it as well, and I just wondered if you'd talk us through both things.
Yeah, I mean, what I got from it is the fact that I'm actually living the experience, and it's given me the chance to try and give other people an insight of how it feels at times, to try and challenge the way they think in one respect. Obviously, I'm not trying to change anybody's opinion, but just try and give them a bit more insight as to how mental health can affect somebody. Again, and to try and dispel some of the myths and everything that go with mental health. What I got out of it personally is I actually feel as though for once in my life I'm actually achieving something by doing this. If I can sort of reach one person, then it means that I'm doing my job the way it should be done.
Yeah, and we've had some lovely feedback from the professional trainers that you've been working with to say how amazing your experience has been. And I know when I first spoke to you after you'd done it, you were elated by it, weren't you?
Yeah, like I said, I liked it because there was no sort of stone unturned. And even sort of having to discuss what's deemed as a difficult subject to talk about. It wasn't just swept under the carpet, it was discussed along with other ailments, etc. Which is, again, why I did enjoy doing the course, because not one thing got missed out. I mean, that's the one thing I like about Home Group is they don't see you for any disabilities, they see you for your abilities, and all they've seemed to have done for me is to sort of make myself sort of step out my comfort zone at times and give me the encouragement to do things like this. I mean, if somebody said to me like 10 years ago, you're going to be sat here doing a podcast or whatever, I'd have gone, what's that? And two, I'd have gone, you've got no chance, because I don't feel comfortable doing things like this. But the reason I'm doing it is because I feel it's an important subject to try and get out there to everybody, just to give people a bit more understanding.
Okay, so the second thing on our plan was about as a customer, you ring up, you speak to somebody who now got a bit more understanding about what you're talking about, but then we were worried that they wouldn't know where to signpost that customer to, so what services are available. Because if you're not working with that kind of service, and things change so much, that we wanted to try and make that easy. So Indra, in your area, you kind of took that problem on, didn't you, and built a directory. Do you want to say more about that?
We did, yeah. It hadn't originally started off as a mental health directory. It just happened that the two ended up interlinking. It was more sort of a directory of signposting for everything, right, from sort of police, dentists, the NHS. We have a system up in Cumbria called QDoc, or actually is now called Choc on Call. So it was getting the signposting from that. But when it came to light that there was a mental health group starting up in Home Group as well, we wanted to get sort of involved with it at the same time, we decided to start signposting for the mental health. So again, it's gone on to the phase of how you would contact for a crisis team, what charities are out there. If you're feeling really low that you need to talk to somebody, these are the contact numbers, right down to the fact that if you don't want to talk, there are other means of doing it. You can download apps, that type of thing. So you could just do it by the power of text. So we decided to put it all into one place, and it's been launched. And as far as I know, it's actually starting to work. So we're maybe looking to roll it out to a further field shortly.
Excellent. It's really, really good news and really useful. And then the last thing, 3 is the magic number, but this one's the massive thing, because we're talking about Home Group customers who are struggling with their mental health, and how lonely an experience that could be. And obviously loneliness is a massive subject that you could have a 1,000-point action plan sitting underneath. But we took on a few things. So the first thing that we took on is that we would get mental health first aid training for some of our customers who volunteered to have it, so that they could kind of be a lookout in some of our communities and estates and services, and sort of help us spot people who might be struggling, so that we can get in there and help before things go wrong for them. So that's underway at the moment, and I don't know if any of you were having.
Yeah, I started this week, so.
Did you?
Well.
Oh, you are starting this week.
Yeah.
So that's great, and I've got that training, and I found it really, really valuable. But then the other thing that we did as part of that is today's podcast.
Hooray!
We wanted to think about different ways of reaching Home Group customers with either with poor mental health or with brilliant mental health. Just another way of feeling like you could connect with people. And so we've talked about a few ideas, but this was one of them, and this is how we've got started.
It is. It's absolutely a great idea. as you've said about people with good mental health as well. It's important to know that, you know, everybody can have good days as well as bad days, and bad days as well as good days. The concept is that you ride out the bad and head for the good. So I suppose in a way it'll be sort of talking about in the future on different podcasts and that, about maybe how to cope with the bad days and different coping mechanisms, and of course we'll bring people in that do it and sort of learn from their own personal experiences and all that type of thing as well.
Can I just add also that we mustn't forget the people that are living with somebody with mental health, how it can affect them as well.
Oh, of course, there's always the people and that are the support networks out there, whether they be professional or personal. And you've also got to remember that they have mental health as well, and it can be upsetting and frustrating and really sad at times to actually see a loved one going through bad doses of mental health and everything. One of the stigmas that's now sort of changed is the way that you word it. I don't suffer from mental health, I live with mental health, and I've learned to live with mine, and I've learned to cope with it. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and both of them are widespread pain, and they both, it's like sitting on a roller coaster of mood. I have good days where I'm happy and go lucky and everything else, and I have other days where I'm just a walking shell of myself, and part of that comes with it is anxiety, not that you'd actually notice at times.
See, that's the misconception of people. They assume because we're sat here doing something like this that there's nothing wrong with us. But then they've got to remember this is us on a good day. It doesn't mean to say that when I wake up tomorrow morning I'm going to full of beans and thinking, I can't wait to do the next podcast. Because it might not be like that. It might be I just don't want to be here anymore without being too dramatic.
Do you think, though, Stevie, that the view of mental health is one way or another? It's like one extreme to the other. So people either expect you to be on the brink of collapse all the time, or they think you're all right all the time.
There's no middle ground. It's like there's all types of mental health disorders. I actually class mine as a disability. And the reason I class it as a disability is because it does affect my day-to-day life. Just because I'm able to do something one day doesn't naturally mean I'm going to be able to do it the next day. And like I said, one of the big things that annoys me is when you're not in the right place, when you're feeling really down, you either get told, oh, give your head a shake, pull yourself together, or if they see you when, you know, what I call sort of normal, which isn't everyone else's normal, but it's my normal, where I'm able to cope with a certain amount of things, they assume that there's nothing wrong with me. And it's like, well, you know, you're not working, you're not doing this, there's nothing wrong with you, why aren't you working? And they don't seem to understand that, yes, if I could work, I would more than be willing to work, but I don't know how I'm going to be from day to day. Plus, a lot of the medication that you take with depression and everything tend to sort of make you very sleepy, very drowsy, so you're not able to sort of think properly. And again, that's just to numb what's going on in your head at the time. So you can't operate in that kind of situation.
Yeah, you're saying that mental health is on a sliding scale, Claire. You're right, it is. Again, I go back to the scenario of the broken leg. You break a leg, you put a plaster on it, it's there. Everybody knows you've broke your leg. The plaster's off, it's healed. There's no in between. You don't suddenly get part of a plaster and the plaster gets thinner as it goes along. So it's one or the other. So I think everybody seems to think because of physical illnesses like that, you catch a cold, you're ill for 5 days, you're then better. or something like that. Mental health must be the same. Oh, you're having a bad day, your bad day stopped, you're back on a good day, therefore you're cured. So why are you now having a bad day later on? I thought you were all right yesterday. They don't seem to realise that you do have this sliding scale for whatever reason. You do get that it can be a stupid little trigger as well. Something that might not affect you today can affect you tomorrow. I found as well with a lot of my painkillers and that certain painkillers will work today but they won't work tomorrow, and you get frustrated. It's the same with the happy pills, as we call them, the sunshine pills, your antidepressants. They work great, for now, but all of a sudden something will happen and they're not as good as what they were.
Well, a good example of that is, and again, I'm just pulling out the air here, is remember when you first started drinking alcohol, yeah? How many, whatever it was you were drinking, did it take to get you drunk?
Exactly, it takes a lot more now.
Exactly, so the longer you take something, the less effect it has, so you're having to take more. And that's the same with medication, which is the problem I have, which is why I'm constantly having to change medications or change the combination, because they reach a point where they no longer do the job they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you do sort of build up a slight immunity to them. Yeah. And you do get a lot of mental health illnesses need a combination of drugs, and it's finding that right combination. So while you're going through things, then that can add to your mental health, because all medications come with side effects and everything else. I mean, again, the prime example one with your antidepressants is most antidepressants for the first 6 weeks as they take effect can actually cause suicidal tendencies. And unfortunately, you're on antidepressants because you're already heading that way. So you've got to now manage that side effect while the cure is helping the cause, but can make the cause worse. So you've got to sort of maintain that level whilst you're looking for the cure for it. But even that, medication's not a cure; it's a band-aid.
No, I was going to say you got to realise medication isn't the be-all and end-all.
No.
It just helps. It doesn't actually.
Medication gives you the plateau to be able to find your coping mechanism. Is that what you would agree with, Amber?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on a very specific cocktail of drugs that work for me, and I've definitely found something similar to what you've been talking about, that after a while they sort of stop working. But for me, as well as medication, I've realised that I need to stay as least stressed as possible, because when I'm stressed, I get psychotic, and it's hard because I sometimes find I have a lot going on in my week, and I'll get to the end of the week and I'll burn out because I've just done too much.
Well, I think the point that we were making earlier about some days are good days and some days are bad days, and actually, from the sounds of it, you can start off a week quite good, and then you get to that point when you burn out. It's not as easy to be consistent.
No, and I think people, like Stevie said, people struggle to understand that we may look normal, whatever normal may be, but that doesn't mean we are well. And everyone's on a scale, so I often talk with my mental health team about what percentage I'm functioning at. So 100% being the best I can be, and 0 being totally awful, the worst. And I think that everyone has a different. So say I would say today, for example, I'm at 60%, but someone else's 60% will look very different to mine.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and if I've learnt anything from doing this working group, if that's what we'd call it, it's that Home Group does care about your mental health. So maybe we've got listeners who think that Home Group is out of touch. I just would really encourage you to believe that Home Group really does care about its customers and volunteers' mental health.
Yeah, and we're always looking for more people to join the group as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's been a really interesting chat and an informative one today, and I'm sure we can take a lot away with us. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to you joining us next time. So remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always.